G'day everyone and welcome to the show. Woo! I love the other two are just, yep, we're here, Zoe, what do you want? So welcome everyone to Making Your Business Finance Sexy. I am your host, Zoe, the video confidence coach. And today we have two people today. Today we have Roy Emmett, our esteemed Humanising Money Matters financial entrepreneur partner. But for a special guest today, we have Andrew from Ascend Accounting and Advisory.
Hi, everyone.
Awesome. Now, I have here in front of me bios to be able to introduce you to, but I want to throw a little spanner in the works and get you to introduce yourselves to the audience today.
As the guest, Andrew, please take the podium, and I'll follow in behind you.
All right. I'm Andrew, obviously from Ascend Accounting and Advisory. We're a very new business in Geelong. My business partner Simone and I started in April this year. It's all going pretty well so far, but we're both accounting veterans. I've been doing it for about 20 years, and I've sort of started in a small accounting firm, went to a big accounting firm, then went overseas and worked in businesses for about 10 years. And there was, some big multinational businesses I used for, and then ended up back in public practice. And then, I met Simone about 2.5 years ago, and we thought we could do a pretty good job at building an accounting firm. Not really different, but just being like there's a few core values that we thought we could do better than what we did. One being big on communication and being open and honest and making sure people know what they're up for and what the risks are, and just making sure there's no surprises is one of our catch cries. So that's me.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Yeah, because it can be particularly in when you're not used to paying tax on your own initiative as a sole trader, and if you've done quite well, those instalment regimes can be quite nasty if you're not across what needs to happen. And I've had a number of examples where people have paid instalment tax throughout the year, get to the tax return, oh, sorry, you've got to pay another $10,000. Not great. So that communication thing is just really critical in terms of what people are doing and how they're going about it. So, totally 100% behind you on that one.
Yeah.
Are you going to introduce yourself, Roy?
Sorry.
Yes, sorry. No, sorry. I'll dial that back. Yes. Webinar number 2. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time at a challenging part of the day to be with us today. Part of our focus with Zoe and I is bringing the grassroots level of small business entrepreneurs to a level where they understand the needs to have a resource like yourself in place, but not quite ready for that big leap. But they need that connection between understanding what the business does to set the business up, so when you go to your tax agent that everything's fine. Similar to yourself, Andrew, I've been doing this for 20 years. Zoe and I have been at this project for about 3 or 4, and we're now feeling like we've got the package and the business based on information, communication, and trying to make it a bit of fun by making business finance sexy. So, Zoe, back to you, and on with the agenda.
Awesome. Now I'm just going to do one last thing before we get going today, and then I'm just going to let you two have it. You can just keep going and yabba, yabba, yabba.
Yeah.
Good yabba, yabba. I just want to state, just for everyone watching at home. But I just want to first acknowledge the country on which we produce this webinar series on. We are producing this live stream in the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Alliance. Sovereignty was never ceded. We need a treaty now. Let's start the show. So I'll leave you two up to it.
I think from where I'd like to try and kick off, Zoe and Andrew, is around a very important date for people that aren't in the loop in terms of what the compliance system means, and that's at the end of this month, October 31. It's a deadline for people that don't have a tax agent in place, and this is more the individual and sole trader. because tend to be, if you're in different entities, you probably already had an established relationship with a tax agent, particularly, but for the small business startup and entrepreneur, they've only been in it for 8 or 9 months and suddenly they've got to get their taxes done. Not a lot of people understand around October 31 what it means to your obligations and what you need to do. So it's kind of a two-edged sort of making sure that you've got a system that will get you moving towards those goals, and also to make sure that you can connect with a reliable accounting firm that can manage your tax affairs for you rather than trying to blunder it through yourself. So perhaps because you're more in tune with the legislation, Andrew, perhaps explain, if you can kick off and just discuss what it means to get everything done by October 31, and then if you go past that date, what steps you need to be aware of and what you should be thinking about doing.
Yeah. So as Roy said, March 31, if you're going to do your tax returns yourself, you need to have these completed and sent to the ATO. If you find you're not going to meet that, you could look at getting on a list of a tax agent. As long as you're on their list by the October 31st, you actually have until usually around May the following year, as long as you've got a good record with the ATO. If you have a bit of a history of late lodgements or late payments, then even if you're with a tax agent, you're generally still going to have to lodge by the October 31. And that'll be around for a couple of years until you've sort of proven that you're now a good Australian citizen and lodging and paying on time.
Yeah.
If you do lodge late, you do open yourself to interest on any tax payable as well as penalties as well. So you just need to be on top of your tax, either making sure you're on a tax agent's list by then, or you are about to lodge if you haven't already.
How do you find this out? Like, where do you go? Like, say, for example, for someone who may or may not, for a very period of time, didn't pay tax because I didn't know how to. Where does one find out where to find and pay this tax?
So the ATO website it's not easy to navigate. Probably I've had a lot of experience with it, so I sort of can know what to type. But that's a good start. There's also some ATO helplines which are quite good. If you get the right person, that is. Some people, it is a call center, so some people sort of are new or they just stick to a script. But there's some really good people there that can help you. I get to cheat a bit, so there's a tax agent hotline that I get to call. So yeah, I usually can bypass those sort of more sort of ones that will stick to the script or have a checklist to go through. But if you are in trouble, call them and they might be able to help you if you don't want to go down the line of speaking to a tax agent.
Yeah, also too, Andrew, I believe the tax agent board website gives you a facility to search for tax agents as well.
Yes, you can jump on there, the Tax Practitioners Board or the TPB for short.
Do you teach? Sorry, mate. You go. Yeah.
I think most people would get on a Google and just look up the local accountants.
Okay. From personal experience, though, do you find a lot of your work comes to you word of mouth, or they come through a search engine?
It's all referrals. As I said, we're still quite new, so we're not particularly good at marketing as yet. Like, I think we're still slightly invisible on Google. So we're trying to solve that problem. But from my experience working at big firms and other firms, it's usually referrals that are going to, and our network. So we've sort of been building a pretty good network of people, other professionals and stuff, and sort of other finance people, which sort of will help them, they'll help us. So
I think too. From my perspective, I've worked with up until COVID hit with my brother in Melbourne, and it was quite remarkable the level of respect from a face-to-face referral. I'm not quite sure why the accounting business maybe it's why people are successful, not because by going to someone who's had the experience, to me, tends to magnify that that's either a good service provider or a not so good service provider. And I tend to, even with electricians, plumbers, builders, whatever, if there's a service provider that I need, I tend to say, okay, who knows what and what's their recommendations. But particularly with the accounting game, because if you're not prepared and you're not knowing to ask the right questions, there are some people that can take advantage of that, and you end up with a rather large bill for a service consult that you're not really sure what you're asking for. So I'm really quite keen to explore that bookkeeper, cloud-based software to the tax agent connection, so that we can really take this opportunity to reinforce from $15 to $20 up to $50 to $100. You can have softwares that basically connect you with your tax agent, and then they can handhold remotely, and it works really well if there's a few basic communications in place.
Yeah. So at Ascend, that's one thing where, like, as I said, we're good at communication. So any service or package that we offer anyone, it's all agreed up front. So you're not going to get any surprises. So if someone does need that hand holding, we will have the conversation up front, and we're not going to charge you for that conversation. Whereas it's changing a little bit, but yeah, there are tax agents that will sort of, as soon as you call them, they'll sort of turn the clock on, and then at the end of your project, they'll send you a bill. So that's one of our big things, that we don't like that sort of bill surprise. So we're upfront. You ring us, we'll have a chat. There's no cost for that chat. If there's work to be done, we'll send you a proposal, and then you can agree or not agree.
I guess for me, that's the really interesting part, is from because you're, as you say, you're, in terms of your own practice, you're relatively with a new startup, so to speak. How do you educate the potential client and your engaged clients to get them to ask the right questions? Like, I know I've had some examples where people are absolutely brilliant at what they do creatively, service-wise, but you put a P&L or a balance sheet and you start to ask them things, and they just go into this hyperbolic state of zombieism and no idea what they're doing. And I've found that sometimes it doesn't happen often because I'm getting better at it, but sometimes I wonder whether I'm actually talking, a zombie language because of the looks I'm getting back at me, where I'm thinking I'm trying to do my best to explain it in such a straightforward and connective manner, but I completely missed the point. And because we're so time poor, no one knows what the business world is going to look like with any great accuracy post-COVID, now that we're looking like getting into our normal, back to whatever normal will be. I think that communication element of business, Andrew, will be just so critical.
Yeah. So there's, I think, one of the hardest things, as like I spend all days looking at financials and tax returns and spreadsheets and numbers, and just I have to sort of really focus to step back and sort of get out of my accountant brain and sort of into like just the shoes of a business owner, which I've got a lot of experience over. And you got to sort of realize they're not going to, like, you can't talk in acronyms like a lot of people do when they're working. That's just not going to cut it with a business owner. You got to just talk to them in simple terms, what it means for them financially. And it might take you 2 or 3 goes. Like the ATO is very good at keeping accountants in work, because they try to simplify something and add 15 new rules, and just even accountants struggle at times to keep up with the new rules they bring in. Yeah. So it might take us a few goes, but we're going to sort of make sure that, like, if you've got an amount payable, why it's payable, when it's due, how much is due. If you can't pay it, what are the options? Like, we're sort of going to make sure, you're not going to sort of get hung out to dry at all.
So how much proactive work do you do, in a sense of, through the year? Do you take the opportunity, if you're looking at a client each quarter, for their BAS calculation, to do a rough ballpark annualised tax element, or are you just more in a revisory sort of revisory saying, okay, you're looking at this and X, Y, Z? Because I think that advice is really going to be that business advice, not just your tax agent hat. For me, particularly when we just don't know what COVID's going to bring to us, as I just said, that advisory role, I think, is going to really take a step up. And I think for me, I'll just say if I was a newbie, I would come to someone and say, it would be given that I would know that you know how to do a tax return.
Yeah.
What it would be for me now is what and how do you get to know my business so that you can help me get the best out of my business.
Yeah. So again, that's going to depend what you're coming to speak us about. Like when we have an initial meeting, we don't just talk about how you went last year, what are your numbers, this is what your tax is going to be. We know the value of advisory, so we'll sort of ask the deeper questions of sort of like what's your long-term plan, why'd you get into it, what do you need to live the lifestyle you want to live?
Yep.
All those kind of questions, which a lot of people haven't even thought about. Like when we ask, what's your end game? What's your sort of what do you want to be in 3 years? Most people haven't even thought that far ahead. They've had a good idea and they've sort of just started working. And like having a long term or even an end game in your mind, and like it influences decisions you make today. So it's sort of stuff like that. And when you start asking those sort of deeper questions, they sort of start to realize that maybe they do need a bit of need someone else to come in and sort of like talk about their goals and how they're going to achieve those goals as well.
Yeah. So do you take what I would call a more, for you and Simone, when you plan for a client, do you take a more holistic view? You just don't look at the slice that might be their business. When you say lifestyle, partner, children, all those sorts of things, you just don't go and say, okay, what's the, taking a quarter or a half of the pie and saying, well, that's all I need to know about, because I think that is fundamentally the old way things were done. The new breed, which I would say, because of where you're at with yourself and Simone, the new breed of tax agent and business advisory really needs to say, okay, what's the complete picture? Because if they've suddenly got they need 100 grand to live off, but their business is only giving them 50 grand, well, someone has to make a decision on what to do. And sometimes the emotional turmoil that's involved in looking after their baby that they've wanted to do for so long and it's not working, that's where the business advisory element really needs to be there. Because I've seen 2 or 3 businesses that have folded and lost thousands and thousands of dollars purely because they wouldn't take the advice that the baby, their business was sunk, that they just extended 2 or 3, 4 years past what they should have done. And didn't take on the advice of their and that's the other thing too. Obviously, when you're giving advice, the end result, the person needs to be listening to what you've got to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely had a lot of clients over the years where you'll sit down and set the goals and they just won't listen or put in action the steps you've planned out with them, and they're just like, you'll meet them again in 3 months and there'll be nothing ticked off. And they're the businesses that'll just either disappear or they'll just plod along, and then the people won't be making or hitting their goals that they want to, and then sort of we're often the scapegoat, unfortunately. They'll come down like 2-3 years down the track and be like, your advisory isn't working. As much as we can tell you and plan out the actions, that the business owners need to take them to sort of really hit their goals.
So how do you and Simone manage that? Like, how often will you collaborate to say, okay, we've got XYZ clients. Do you review your clients collectively together, or do you sort of say to Simone, okay, what problems have you got? And then you have the discussion. And then Simone says, well, what problems have you got, Andrew? And then have the discussion. How do you make sure that you're getting the best out of each other so that you can give the best possible service to your clients?
Yeah, well, as we're quite new, like it is, and yeah, Simone and I, when we're allowed to sort of sit next to each other all day, there's a lot of back and forth and asking for advice on how we would do this. Like we rely on each other heavily.
Yeah.
For that, and we've got a pretty good support network as well that we've built up as well. So we both know accountants that have been in the game for 40 odd years.
Yeah.
We're good. We get on well with a couple of financial planners, we've got lawyers, all these kind of people that, and we've all got like a bit of an understanding that like we can pick up the phone and call them for advice on something as well. So, there's not too many questions that we probably couldn't hit up at someone in the support network we've built to come up with an answer or a plan.
So in that, I find it quite interesting now that no one can know everything, and that support network, like you've just played out there, financial planning, solicitors, lawyers, legal legislation specialists. I think that's a really fundamental thing to have in place, and that's great. For the short time you've been operating, that you've got a lot of that in place already, Andrew. That's fantastic for your business.
Yeah, well, a lot of those networks were built before we went out on our own. So as we said, we've both been in the game for 20 years, so we've both had connections built up over that time. So and when we went out on our own, we sort of just made sure they were still open, and they both and. You'd be surprised how open people are when they talk about business. Like we've met a few accountants in the short time we've been away, and they're happy to tell us how they've done stuff and how they've gone and grown their businesses or what marketing they do, what hasn't worked. I think there's probably been about 4 or 5 accounting firms, some local even, that have just been happy to share their story. And I think there's more business owners than you realise that are just happy to talk about their business and share with you what they've learned, and it can be invaluable.
Yeah, I think that element, and that was probably where, I can bring you in for a bit, Zoe, is we worked very hard at the start to get things in place, because Zoe had been burnt. Probably, I'll be honest, probably one of the most poorly treated client in terms of paying for a service and getting an outcome was probably one of the worst results I've ever seen. And I'm not sure what the processes of those particular bookkeepers were trying to prove, but it's not about simply giving someone a direction or writing up, getting the old butcher's paper out and giving you a lecture and these are the notes and this is what you've got to do. Implementation, really critical. And I think I took 12, 18 months to win your trust on that, Zoe, so that you could just take the step back and say, okay, I'll let Roy do this, because you were so anxious of having another poor outcome that I had to really work hard at that foundation in our business relationship. So, hey, Zoe, I've got this. You can trust me. And it was really disappointing because it was really easy. Once Zoe understood what she needed to do, it all changed. So in that situation, Andrew, like what you, in the time you and Simone and new business that's coming to you, you see clients that have been poorly treated or have had a poor outcome, and how do you manage that process?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest gripes we get is just people cannot get onto their account. Like the communication is poor.
Yeah.
The fees come afterwards and often can be a surprise. So that's why we've sort of implemented one of our core values is communication. If someone tries to contact us, we do our best to get back to them within sort of the 12 or 24 hours.
Yeah.
We definitely don't leave something. We don't leave an unanswered call not returned. And there's so many industries out there where there's really, really good people, and then there's some people you just don't know how they have been in business as long as they have.
Funny you should say that, Andrew. I think from my experience, they just not so much in our game per se for bookkeeping and for tax and accounting, people just get used to the relationship and they just don't challenge it. And I think that's the unique thing that I think will come out of post-COVID. And in terms of the support you and Simone give yourself, do you have a VA or a personal assistant, or do you guys work it out just amongst yourselves at this stage? Because it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate with kids, family, business, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, life is definitely busy. It's all just Simone and I at the moment. So we're admin, marketing, doing the grunt work, doing the sales, getting our name out there. Which I don't mind. Like, it's good for me to understand all aspects of the business, but there's some things where can't wait to where we can afford to palm some of it off.
And that's
social media.
That cost benefit analysis, all that. One of my main client in Geelong, it's just a great story because particularly the wife, Sandy, she's the sales, marketing, admin, and Colin's in charge of production and manufacturing and getting the job done. Once she clicked into what I think I've discussed with you before, Andrew, around opportunity cost, if I'm distracted for 4 hours doing this and I'm not actually doing sales, I've just lost $400. And once she got that concept and that cost benefit, okay, we need to get better at what we do. And those things come into play, I think, and you're right, where you probably maybe be a 2.5 person practice, but you haven't quite got enough there to do, to take that extra body on at this point in time. And I think flipping that's really important to help your business clients recognize that too. And they might be doing crazy hours, 60, 70 hours a week, but then to understand their time use, their cash flow, and their ability to streamline what they do and to let go of, more importantly, to let go of what they need to let go of, is really important. And I think the basis of what yourself and Simone are working towards is fantastic, because the real advantage of growing from the grassroots is you're going to know everything as you bring in, maybe extra junior accountants and maybe an admin person. You're going to know the whole system. Yeah. So you're not going to have a part of your team trying to say, well, I don't think that's right. You're going to say, I think I am right because I've done it. But maybe perhaps not in that sort of tone of voice. What I'm saying is, hey, look, I've been through the trenches. Why is this an issue? How can we work it out? And why do you think we need to change it? And I think that adaptation across to a client base or to a potential client, and I've really, again, at my age now, I've learned, particularly coming to Geelong, is recognising who's ready for that quantum leap and who's not. Because if that person is not ready for that quantum leap into changing how they do things, it doesn't matter how good of tax agent, business advisor, bookkeeper you are, they will not let go of the things they need to let go of.
Yeah, it's hard for to change that mindset of like something's a cost, but they're not putting a time value actually on their own time. So yes, I might have to pay for someone to do my socials or my bookkeeping. But that's going to buy you 3 or 4 hours, and like if your time is going to be much better spent generally. Getting another sale or putting in a system that's going to make you more efficient, or just setting up some policies that's sort of going to keep your business ticking along a lot quicker than you sort of trying to fuddle your way through some bookkeeping or some social media. So
speaking of system, apologies for throwing you off your rocker, Roy, but I wanted to ask you guys about the particular tools that people and small business owners and entrepreneurs may currently already have access to. You did mention a few at the start of the stream, I think the ATO website and maybe a few other things like that. But do you have any recommendations for, of course, all legally you're allowed to provide, but any particular tools that may be helpful for people to be able to organize themselves before they meet you, Andrew, or maybe to people to get an idea of where their finances are before they meet you, Roy, or anything like that?
Well, perhaps if I'll take, because I'm at the grunt level that needs to get people organised to go and see Andrew for their tax returns, and it's really, literally, is someone got the shoebox of receipts, or if you're lucky, are they running a spreadsheet, or if you're even super lucky, have they migrated to a cloud-based software? For me, in a collaboration with someone like yourself, Andrew, and with Simone, that would be my goal. Part of what I would want to do is to look at what the potential client is currently doing, and particularly if in that receipt stage. Another client that I've had now for about 18 months, she was handwriting all of her receipts in a notebook. And I've gone, yep, that needs to change. But her willingness to say, okay, Roy, what do I need to do? So I've set her up on QuickBooks. It has the automation to send receipts automatically to QuickBooks, which I can process. Her business is in Bannockburn. I'm in Newtown in Geelong, and it works really seamlessly. But again, it started with that conversation, understanding what the client is currently doing, what they need to do, and understanding how that needs to then connect with the tax agent. So I guess from my perspective, I'm a bit of a QuickBooks fan, but because I was born up and brought up on the old MYOB, which is not dissimilar to what the cloud-based QuickBooks is now in some of the navigation. But I guess probably, Andrew, from your perspective, with that foundation, and if you're looking for something to feed into what you and Simone, how you go about your processes, what do you need and what do you look for?
Obviously, I'm the same as Roy, where if someone walks in with a shoebox, I shed a tear. If any of the cloud-based accounting systems are pretty good, you can generally always pull your accountant in, and we can generally get all the information we need out of that. Like, we'll still have to ask you a few things about what certain transactions are and stuff like that. But yeah, like it's getting better and better. Like, often now there's clients that attach all their invoices and receipts to their transactions, so there's less back and forth, which means we spend less time doing it. We can probably spend more time sort of analysing your numbers. But there's so many products now, like that just feed into like Xero or QuickBooks and stuff like that just can make your whole business much easier. From a personal one, we've set up, I forget the name of it now. We've got an automated payment system connected to our invoices. And at the accounting firm we just left, they never wanted to do that because they didn't like the fees that were attached with it, and their debtors were out of control and they were always chasing debtors. And like, obviously we've just started, so our fees are a lot less, but we have one client who's a shocking payer, but everyone else on time. And it's just, and we haven't had to call anyone asking for fees. So there's just stuff like that. We've got a client who, a pretty big sort of plumber, who in the last 12 months went on to like an add-in so he can track all his projects and jobs now, how well it's done. Before that, we're sort of just like guessing how the projects were going, like by gut feel and stuff like that. But we've just got a lot more insight. So yeah, technology is definitely a friend, and it's getting a lot better. And
so I'm guessing from what you're saying there too, Andrew, is you're not really bound to loyalty. You're happy to take what works for the client. Like I had and I'll be honest, didn't have a great experience learning Xero. I got trained by a guy, and he forgot to tell me one basic thing: the little plus sign that you click on for new transactions. Left that off the training. So, exactly. You know where that's going. I nearly had a meltdown. I thought, this is crazy. This cannot be this difficult. And then I found something that got me up to speed, and I've gone, it all changed. And then I got onto QuickBooks with another client. And I thought, when I started to do the accounting review and navigation and the checks and balances, I've gone, hey, QuickBooks is for me. I just really, so you're happy to look at most products. You don't have a preference to say, okay, as a new client, you need to be on Xero, or you need to be on MYOB or QuickBooks or whatever else is out there. What do you say to clients generally when you're looking at software?
Yeah, we'll probably push Xero first, just because that's what we're most familiar with. That's what most of our clients are on.
Yep.
But like, I like Xero, you like QuickBooks, so I'm not going to tell a client to get on a Xero if they really like QuickBooks. Like, it's a personal thing. You need to use what works for you. It's your business. I'll be jumping into your file like a handful of times a year, maybe monthly or something like that, whereas you hopefully in there sort of weekly, daily. So yeah, you need to know that system really well and be happy with it. So it's more important for you.
You might need to help me with some training on Xero, because I've got one client that is just doing my head in. I'm getting emails from him to an accounts designated email, which is fine, but the tax agent won't set up HubDoc. So I've got to download the invoice and then load it into Xero, and I'm thinking, this has got hairs on it. I need to change this. So, and that's what's triggered me, because I'm an administrator for probably 7 or 8 clients on QuickBooks. I've just been gone in, set up the email and started to move things around. I've got, gosh, how easy is this? Not having to scanning things as long as I've got a PDF. How good is this? You know?
Yeah.
So
I think there's definitely some shortcuts that we could teach you, but the same, like I think you could probably teach me a few things about QuickBooks as well. So I've got a few clients on QuickBooks, but they're sort of more once a year, twice a year clients at this point. So I'm not only in there sporadically. So I've sort of found my way around it, but I couldn't really tell you how to do anything fancy in there.
Yeah, look, and I guess that's probably why I think, because coming to Geelong, it was by necessity I had to learn all the other programs, because, as I said, born and bred on MYOB, it was the duck's guts up until about 5 or 6 years ago. Xero blew up the market, and all these others. I've seen other things. I think Sage Accounting do one, and there's a couple of others, and they say, have you heard of this? And they're going, oh my God, not another one. And I have to be honest and declare, I do like the navigation and the transaction feeds out of Xero are second to none. But where for the mild inconvenience I suffer with QuickBooks from time to time, I just find their pricing differentiation for startups something that's really important. And Xero has got a bit sneaky. They show a set price, and then there's all these add-ons. And whereas QuickBooks has one upfront price, and they're basically a $20, a $35, and a $50, and depending on how many employees, you pay on top of that. But that's all the additions that you have. So I tend to, but partly today, what I want to really establish is that process. Say our delightful hostess, she comes to us, she's a new client, got the shoebox. How do we start her? What do we direct her to do? And how do we set up a new client? Just a brief synopsis we'll use. If you don't mind, Zoe, we'll just use you as a little model. So I'll come to you, Andrew, as a collaborator, say, Andrew, I've got this client that I'd like to direct you. She's a really good person, but that really has started up, but has got herself into a bit of a mess. I believe this is the way to go. What would you say to me in terms of, okay, what you need to build in with Zoe so it works for us? What's your checklist? What do you go through to say to a potential bookkeeper that will bring a client to you? What information or what instructions do you like to give to that in that process?
It's hard to say. Every client's so different. We'll generally ask to have a look at hopefully they've got a cloud-based accounting software, and we'll jump in there and sort of start having a look to see what kind of state it's in. And then from there, we'll sort of develop a plan we'll usually set up an initial meeting, and in that meeting, we'll sort of discuss what the client needs are, whether they just want their tax done, they want their BASs, or if they want the full-fledged advisory. So and then that's, as I said, like I keep probably harping on it, but like at that point, we'll give you a proposal that meets your needs. And then once you've sort of agreed to, like, you want the full-fledged advisory or just want your tax done, that's when we'll come up with a plan of how we're going to attack it.
So
and if she's
sorry, Andrew, you're coming back to that communication thing, that when you and Simone have that focus when you go in, that before I can actually give you something, I need to actually determine what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's sort of, I don't know, we might just do your tax for you and you're like, I wanted more than that. And you're going to walk away and just go on, those guys at Ascend don't know what they're doing. Whereas, you just...
So it really does start at the beginning of the process.
Yeah. And one of the big keys is it's a two-way communication street. So we can tell you everything we think, but if you're only telling us half the story, like it's probably means our advice may not be that great. So it's like that's like one of the big things that we want is like even our just basic tax returns. We're like on our proposal we say unlimited phone calls. So because we want people to ring us to say my situation changed, this is what's happening, and then and they're not worried to call us. They sort of almost call us too much, if anything, and we can sort of guide them and give them our advice, and sort of, again, that leads to no surprises as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I agree, because particularly in a busy period, I have a couple of clients, I look, only if you've got time, and I say, hang on, it's about you and your business. I would rather you ask way too many questions than ask none. Because if you're not asking questions, I'm assuming, and I won't always assume correctly. So again, you make another really valid point in terms of keeping on track with delivering the outcome that that your client needs. And again, particularly for someone like Zoe, who's just in that startup phase, who may not have a huge amount of capital to put towards a business analysis. So if you've got that jigsaw puzzle sorted and you've got on track the 4 or 5 outcomes that you're looking to deliver, I think you're in a really great place to get a fantastic outcome for the client.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Yeah, it's just
Now,
I'll keep coming back to communication. It's just it makes your experience so much better.
Yeah, well, you feel like you've done the job, and it's, we're all generally in business. We want an outcome. We need to pay bills, and we've got a family to support or whatever. But if we're just looking at the clinical side of it, where's your stimulation? Where's your satisfaction? And when simple thing, when someone has that aha moment, and the penny drops, or they get it and they say, gee, that's just something I haven't understood for so long, or I just didn't realise that was impact on me. Because as the service provider, you've taken the time to step them through the process. Are you understanding what we need to achieve? And it's really important to get that point across. And unfortunately, I've encountered people in the past, and more from the practitioner, if you don't ask, you don't get told. But I think that way of doing business is dying, which is a good thing. And I think, Andrew, what you and Simone are bringing together really will be what people will be looking for in the next 5 to 10 years, when we start to really get through this melee of what COVID's created for us.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I've just lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I thought I'd save you there for a second, Andrew. You kind of looked a bit blank there, so I thought I'd save you.
Yeah, while you think about that, I'll come back and you can jump in and help me here too, Andrew. There are some good websites that you can go to for a resource. Obviously, if you're looking for a software package, the mainstream ones, Xero, QuickBooks, MYOB, unfortunately, I don't believe they've made this transition to cloud-based software as good as Xero and QuickBooks, and there's others around. Those particular platforms, you just go to their website and they'll all have the ability to download a trial subscription for 30 days so that you can set up information and have a bit of a play and get the feel for it. In terms of legislation and rules, and as Andrew said a bit earlier, the ATO website is a wealth of knowledge, but you really have to know what you're putting into the search engine, because you get some really weird and wonderful things if the key words that you're using don't quite match with what you're looking for. So, but as far as that goes, that's just experience and knowing what to look for. The next one is what I think, Andrew, is at the abr.gov.au, which is the Australian Business Register that you can, as a sole trader, you can go to set up your ABN. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. Setting up your own ABN is quite easy, simple and free. It doesn't take too long, so you can do that one yourself. The Victorian, there's Australian business and Victorian business, which that's not the exact names. I forget what they're exactly called, but they're both government websites, and they're actually pretty good, the stuff they put on there as well.
The Victorian one, I think it's business.vic.gov.au. And I don't know too much about the federal one, because the Victorian one obviously is the one I've been looking for, and it's got a great amount of knowledge on COVID disaster payments, COVID grants that for businesses that have suffered. Again, it's just knowing where to look and what to ask for. But just coming back to our core goals of what we're trying to achieve here, if you're stuck, go to the professionals and they'll help you. And particularly where, as Andrew has indicated to us, that he and Simone are happy to have that initial upfront discussion to determine what you need without charge. I think that is just awesome in terms of a resource to be able to take advantage of, because it also gives you an opportunity to build rapport with a professional, because they'll be genuine in what they want to achieve for you, and you can get enough information to make a decision to say, I think I need to get this done by a professional, or even just have a one-off assistance to help you find what you need to find to manage it yourself if you want to. But I certainly have a preference. If you're not good at something, get a professional to do it. Like, I don't know electronics, I get an electrician. I don't know plumbing, I get a plumber. So I think you understand where I'm coming from. So do you feel that's the same way, Andrew? Is that where your thinking sits in terms of what you'd like to find with your clients?
Absolutely. I think, if you're starting up, having a conversation with an accountant or a bookkeeper or just someone that knows the business well, there's just so many little things you wouldn't have thought of. Like an example, if you're going into business with a friend, like getting a partners or a shareholders agreement, stuff like that, which is going to save you down the track if you fall out with your business partner. Like, there's stuff in there that you'll go through that you wouldn't even think about, and you probably go, that's never going to happen to us, but unfortunately it does happen. And just having that bit of paper to go back to of like, this is what's going to happen in this situation, it's going to save a lot of headaches. And there's things like, just other little things that you wouldn't have thought about in your business journey, and just getting someone to sort of take you through all that at the start. You may not have an ongoing sort of agreement with them, but just someone that's going to give you some insight that you may not get otherwise.
Yeah. Funny you should.
May I add a couple of recommendations for people outside of your specific scope? Is that okay?
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm going to go full screen and take up all the room for you guys. So I have recommendations. So since I started working with Roy, I felt a lot more confidence in actually going out and seeking more information that's already publicly available in the space. So there's the ATO website and a few of those things that can be a bit overwhelming and not exactly palatable, as I like to call it. So I recommend a podcast and a website associated, run by Australian accountant, I think she's technically, or financial advisor, Victoria Devine. She runs a podcast called She's on the Money, and that's a very nice, palatable, Australian-based podcast that talks about everything to do with money and business, building your wealth and all that good stuff. Okay. And I find that's just very palatable. The best way she put it is she's giving a very palatable version of what the ATO recommends. There are other things out there. So once you find She's on the Money, you'll be able to find all the other versions out there. The Bendigo Bank did a podcast series late last year that was hosted by a comedian. Can't remember any of the information about it, but if you find Bendigo Bank podcast, I'm sure you will find it there, and it had a whole bunch of details about money and business and all that things that came along with it. But you'll be surprised that especially over the past 2 years, there's been a lot of content and accessible content out there that's being provided by mainly financial advisors, but people all around the space. And also one who you may know of, Roy, but it's called Master Your Money Now, is a local business, and I may or may not be friends with the owner. That is, again, an Australian-based financial planning group. But they have a lot of content that is very accessible. They make everything, again, not dumbing it down for the rest of us, but making it easy enough to understand what all the jargon means, and makes it slightly more palatable to get answers to things, especially in Australia, compared to the ATO. As you both mentioned, the ATO is a bit interesting to navigate. And when I first started my business, I felt that same way too, where there was just a lot of jargon, despite the fact that this is aimed for people like me.
Yeah.
No,
I think that's us showing. Sorry, I think we'll show our age.
Yeah.
We're just talking about websites and boring government sites, and so he comes in with podcasts and yeah. So.
Look, but that's just to extend that conversation, Andrew, and I think probably where time will be our friend is, I'm finding people identify more with real experiences. I just don't think people are interested in ploughing through legislation and rules and regulations. I tend to find, if I can sit down and say, look, this person did this and this was the outcome, and being a positive one, and this one for different circumstances, and trying to put a reality to poor decision making in business, not to frighten people per se, but to say, understand, if your business isn't tracking the way you want it to, if your record keeping is up to scratch and you're on top of it, you can get that business advice that can give you some really good information and feedback on what you're trying to do, whether it's viable and go forward, rather than going down the rabbit hole for 2 or 3 years and suddenly you've got 50 grand worth of debt for no return. And I think the elements of bringing in, I find a comedian doing finance, that could be really interesting. I might have to track that one down. That could be quite something that's really worthwhile spending some time on. But do you agree, Andrew, that talking to clients in real experience and saying, hey, look, this is what the implication can be of this is what the implication can be of this, rather than saying you being the school teacher or the principal at the head of the class saying you must do this is the rules and this is what you must do?
Yeah, no, I think definitely have the consequences. I think it's behavioral economics. One of the things is showing the negative impact of inaction or doing the wrong thing. So yeah, you definitely need to sort of let them know what the outcome will be, not just say just do it this way. And like if they understand why they're doing it as well, they're far more inclined to listen and take
absolutely.
on those actions.
Yeah, I'm pleased you put why you're doing it in there. That's part of the conversation that's really important, because you're not sitting there as the business advisor making this stuff up. And if you have the potential consequences and say, this is why you need to do it to avoid this, again, that real life experience to say, well, look, you can try and do it your way, but be aware if you don't do it this way, and this is why I'm asking you to do it, this could happen. And it's not about, again, going to the textbook and saying A, B, C, D. It's saying potentially you could go bankrupt, potentially you could lose your house, potentially, or if you're a startup and you don't get it right, you have a black mark, you can't then get finance, all of those things. And probably that's one quick point, because I just realised we're getting close to the end of the webinar, is briefly with getting tax returns done. They are so vital if you go to a bank or to a lending institution to have tax returns up to date for them to analyse your serviceability of loans applications.
Yeah, especially as a business owner as well, they're going to want your business and your personal stuff up to date.
Yeah. So as you expand, because I do believe everyone goes into business with a view to making something out of it, and you will need working capital, or you might be buying a manufacturing piece of equipment. You might need to fit out an office with 10 grand's worth of computer equipment for your staff. But if you don't have those checks and balances, as simple as 2 concurrent years of tax returns in place, and as Andrew just said, if you're running in a company or a trust or a partnership, they will need your individual returns as well. So when you're that really ingenious startup entrepreneur, do it right at the start, and then everything falls into place as you go along your business life.
And I believe this is a good time to start wrapping up, if that's okay with both of you, because we've only got less than 4 minutes before we have to finish up, because we don't want to take any much more of your time. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us today. I hope you felt like you've gotten everything off your chest, or is there anything else that you think we should know?
Not that I can cover off in 4 minutes, but yeah, just make sure you're hitting up your support network and talking to people about your business, because even it might not be an accountant, but just other people in business, they can be a wealth of knowledge. And often whatever you're facing, someone's done it before. So if you can find that person that can talk about it, it can really help you. Yeah.
Look, I'm really so grateful for your time, Andrew, particularly with your children and at this time of the day. You've brought a wealth of knowledge, real life experience, and you're in a startup phase for your own business. So there's so many elements of what you're doing that really just come over the top of what Zoe and I are trying to create. So I can only thank you from, very sincerely for you and in the background, Simone, for bringing your stories to us today that have really been very, very helpful. So, and I'm sure we'll be in touch and get those clients humming and get everything sorted that we need to do.
Sounds good. It's all good. I love talking business, so yeah, it's happy to.
No, fantastic, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Over to you. Yeah. All right. Well, take care, Andrew. And if you've got any further you want to add, Zoe, for Andrew?
I was just going to let everyone know who is watching what the next month's webinar is. So next month is November. We are already at the end of the year. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, having a little mini breakdown because we're almost at the end of the year because I've lost all time. But next month is going to be speed dating a bookkeeper. So you get to find out how to reach out to Roy and how to contact Roy to discuss anything to do with bookkeeping. Do you like the title? I worked really hard on the title. Did you like the speed dating a bookkeeper?
Well, it dovetails into our marketing, making business finance sexy. So I'm right up there, Zoe.
Okay, good. I'm really happy to hear that. And I'd like to know, Andrew, would you be able to let people listening and watching know where they can find out more about you? And Simone.
Yeah, if you go to ascendaa.com.au or you can email me directly at andrew@ascendaa.com.au. And we're also on Instagram and Facebook, although we're not unbelievably that good at those social media platforms. We are accountants after all.
I was about to say, you're an accountant and you're not rip-roaring at social media off the bat. What kind of accountant are you?
There's the girl. She's always done it. She's done the apprenticeship on me.
Don't worry. It takes a lot of time and I'm still learning and it's my full-time job. So do not worry about that at all. I'm sure you guys are going to do a lot because the first time I met you and Simone, Andrew, was back at the Geelong Small Business Festival, I believe.
Yeah. That's correct.
Yeah,
we did a little session in that.
And that was your first go at it and you guys did a really good job. So I'm sure that progressing onward, you guys will continue to do an awesome job.
Yeah, we just got to do more of it.
Yes, I think you can do it. All right, so we're going to finish off today. Is there anything you want to say, Roy, before we finish off?
Just thank you again, Zoe, for the hosting of another sensational hour for making business finance sexy. Again, for coordinating Andrew to be part of the discussion today. And I feel like this is just a great platform to put things out there for young startups or people who just want to have a little bit more information about how to go about managing their business affairs. So, yeah, fantastic. I'm delighted with the outcome, and thanks again, Andrew, for making the time available. And
My
you too,
pleasure.
Zoe. Yeah.
Hey,
All right.
thanks for
We'll talk
organising,
soon.
Zoe.
No worries.
All right.
Hopefully. See you guys.
Bye.